Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we masech this Yevamot daf Kuf Yud Gimel. We are going to begin on the very bottom of Kuf Yud Beis Mid Beis, the last line. Umayshna katana dimimana umayshna chereshes deloma ma'ana. We know that when it comes to a katana, a girl who was married off by her mother or brother in the absence of a father, that she has the ability to do miyun. We don't find this when it comes to the Kedusha D'Rabbanan of a Chereshes. The question is, why not? So on this, the Imkain, as we continue to Kuf Yud Gimel with Aleph, Mimani V'loi Natzvila. This is going to be a question that's asked TB7, TA6 in question 1. Elu Beis Devarim Lo Tiknu B'Kedusha Chereshes. Katana, Kemoshe Tiknu Chol Katana Metam De Mimani V'loi Natzvila. How come when it comes to a chereshes, who's a katana, that we don't institute this? Because otherwise people won't marry her. And the answer is when it comes to miyun, says Rashi, because when it comes to a katana, okay, she only has that window to be able to do miyun. However, says Rashi, because if it's allowed because she's a cheresh, that she can do miyun, that's going to be an issue for her whole life. And no one's going to want to marry someone with this in the back of their mind, knowing that it can any time happen. Avokatana gvul yeshla, there's a boundary. The Savar, he thought, Mefaisna la kol shaita ad shiarizman miuna. I'll be nice to her until the time miyun is over. Obviously, doesn't mean he shouldn't be nice to her afterwards. Okay. Umayishna katana de achal b'truma, mayishna chereshes lo achal b'truma. Same question. How come, let's say, for example, if let's say that she marries to a kohen, we don't allow truma to be in by a chereshes, that none. Had Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgud al chereshes, shesia avia, that if she was married off by her father while she's a katana, she yaitza beget. The din is that she can go out, she has to go out and get because it's a kedusha deraisa. Val katana bas Yisrael shnisas as a kohen. And we know that a katana, even though she's a katana, she can eat truma, which is mashma v'il chereshes ol achla. Why don't we allow this chereshes to eat truma? Because we're concerned, look at this Rashi, even when she grows up, she has to receive a get. And the answer is, the question is, why not buy this girl who's a cheresh? And Rashi says, maybe we would think she should be able, she could eat a truma d'Rabbanan. Over here, we don't allow her even to eat truma d'Rabbanan. So he says it's a gezerah of shema yachel cheresh b'cheresha. So Rashi says, mishum d'la b'nei oinshininhu. These are not people that can be punished. V'avi kikotan oichel nevelos. She says same status like a cotton who's eating in the vela. Elokula mishum gezerah shemayachel cheresh b'pikachasu. The ika lehachia misa. The problem is that if, let's say, she would eat it in a state of, in this situation, the achel cheresh b'pikachas, that would be considered to be a chiyah misa. El chereshes eishes cheresh mechalfa. The problem is that if a cheresh with a chereshes, they can get confused. B'chereshes eishes bikeach, compared to a chereshes who is married to a healthy man. V'hadim machav cheresh bal pikachas b'cheresh bal chereshes, and people will get confused between the two. Avokatan legadol lekel migz mishum gadol lekatan de'en lekatan nesuin. So we don't have to be concerned about a katan because there is no nesuin for a male boy, and therefore the whole concern is daf when it comes to chereshes. So the question is, it's an oichel nevelos. So gzer shema yachel cheresh maybe kachas. We said maybe what will happen is that the cheresh will eat together with a pikachas woman. The cheresh maybe kachas nami lechel. So why don't we say they could eat truma d'Rabbanan? Because the concern is they may end up eating truma d'oraisa, which is certainly not allowed. So Maishna Katana the Isla Ksuba, Maishna Chereshes Leislik Ksuba. This is the second answer to the question we're going to see. Why do we not give a Ksuba to Chereshes? The Imkain Mamani V'lo Natzvila. Because again, people are not going to marry her. Says Rashi, Katana V'lo Mamani Dasal Chaldeya. However, since she's l'chaldeya, she'll eventually become a bas das, so therefore a ksuba is given. How do we know taka that she should get a ksuba? Did not. Hamamenes, when it comes to a woman who is a katana, regarding doing miyun, does not get a ksuba. Vashniya, va'ailanis, ein lehen ksuba. Now it's mashma only because she did miyun. That's why there's no ksuba. Avol yotzav get ukatana yeshel ksuba. So the dik is that she would get a ksuba as a katana when she leaves with a get. In other words, when she didn't do miyun, it wasn't on her end, it was on his end. So then a ksuba is given. The chereshes benol deleis ksuba. How do we know the chereshes doesn't get? The sanya cheresh shaita shenasu pikchais, to be a cheresh man who marries a healthy woman. Even if, let's say, he becomes healthy later on, or vinishtapa hashaita, or for that matter, the person who was a shaita became healthy, ein lehen klum. They do not get a ksuba. Ratzal kayamin yesh lehen ksuba. If they want to remain, so then there is a ksuba. Says Rashi, ein lehem klum, dein lehem das, ve'ein tanai harishan tanai. Their first condition is nothing. V'afal gav ditakun rabbanan nesu and lecherish. Even though we did say rabbinically there is a marriage, a rabbinic marriage for a cherish, lo tekinu rabbanan ksuba minei. We still don't give them a ksuba. Kevarsha kaman yois mamash ish roitz elisa ish roitz linase. That the woman is still going to want to get married. So continuing, Pikech shenasa chereshes or shaita avil kosavla. Okay, ratzol kaim yisham ksuba. Ufpikech shenasa chereshes. Let's say you have a man who is healthy who marries a chereshes woman. O shaita avil kosavla mea mana ksubasa kayemes. Even if, let's say, he wrote for 100 mana, the ksuba works. And they sharatzal lizaik b'nechasav, because he wants to damage the possession. Says Rashi, even though there's no ksuba, harihu kasavla, he wrote it, however, reitel hasid, v'yos nizuk minachasav tenai kayim. As he wants to damage his own possessions, as he wants to give her something which he doesn't have to, that's fine. It's still a good condition. It works. Time of the Ratza, that's only because he wanted to do it. Mashma halu Ratza in law. If he didn't give her ksuba, he doesn't have to. Dim kain v'mani v'lunatzvil, as we said before, because otherwise he may not want to marry her. Iyachi pikachas l'cheresh, when it comes to a healthy man who marries, a pikachas, a healthy woman who marries a cheresh, l'sakin l'ksuba, why don't we say the same thing? Dim kain v'mani v'lunatzvei. She may not want to marry him. Why would she want to marry a cheresh? So the answer is doesn't matter. Even though she's a pikachas and he's a cheresh, yorisim misha ish roitza lisa isha roitza linase. So even though it's true that maybe you would think she won't want to marry him, it doesn't work in that direction. A woman is more interested in getting married, apparently, according to this, than the man, and she therefore will be okay even marrying a cheresh even without a ksuba. Kahu cheresh dahavi b'shvasti de Rav Malchiyai. So there was this cheresh that was in the neighborhood of Rav Malchiyai, and Ansvei Isisa. So cheresh got married. The Kosovla Arba Meazuze Minchase, and he wrote among his possessions 400 zuz is part of a ksuba. So Amarava man chachim karav Malchiyai. Who is this wise individual likened to Rab Malchiyai? The Gavar Rabbahu, he's a great person. Ksavar ilu ratza shivcha l'shamshay miloi zavninan le. If the cherish would want this, again, if this cherish would want a shivcha to be with would he not be able to purchase her? So kol shekin hacha diikatarti. Here he has two. In other words, if he wants to pay and give her ksuba, there's nothing wrong with it, because the cherish could have purchased the shibcha, and that would have cost money. So instead, he's giving money to his wife, in which not only will she care for him and help in family matters, also she'll be his wife. So Amar Rav Chia Barashi Amar Shmuel Eishes Cherish, the wife of a cherish, ein chayav asham taloi, is not going to be chayiv an asham taloi. What does that mean? An asham taloi is a suffix if you did nevera. So the name of suffix eishes ishi. We're not even going to say it's a suffix. Suffix chaya das suffix ein ba. Whether this cherish has das. V'habol lehab asham taloi devade ein lo shum kinyan min atayra. This is nothing. It's not a kinyan, and therefore because of that, because it's the wife of a cherish, so it's like they're not even married, and therefore there's no din eishasish. So let's lay Masai. Let's bring a proof to this statement. Chamisha lo yitroimu. There are 5 individuals that we don't have them separate truma. However, im tarmu and truma so truma. If they decide to take off the truma, it's nothing. Belhain. Cherish, one of them a cherish, which is why we're bringing this down, is that they have no ability to do this. Furthermore, shoit of a katan. Furthermore, about Torah meshin shalo, you cannot take up truma of something which is not yours. Ovid kachavim shetarmes shel Yisrael. You have an ovid kachavim, a non-Jew, that takes off the truma of Yisrael. That also doesn't work. Now, in this case, the fil b'rshus Yisrael ain't truma truma. So what do we see? This is a raya. We see clearly that a cherish is not a ben das, and therefore, because of that, his truma is not a truma. And for that matter as well, we're going to say the same thing. It says Rashi, "V'katanimiya cherish ain't truma truma, umuteres lazar." The east safeku truma, if it was maybe a truma, the yaksav yitrum boy. It should say it's a truma, but you should be yaksav yitrum. So who do you Rabbi Lezer? The son of Rabbi Yitzchak Omer, Misham Rabbi Lezer, trumas cherish lo teitzi l'chulin. According to him, he actually holds that his truma taka is a suffix. Says Rashi, v'karinan mitzvahs the mashma chada matarti sheish heter v'isser l'fanav k'gayin. If let's say you have an isser and heter in front of you, for example, ishto v'eshes ach. So you have 2 women. One is your wife and one is another woman, and you're in a house. The savar ein sham el ishtai. You thought there was only your wife there. Uval achas, you had beer with one of these 2 women. But biker nimsu shtein v'liyada al ezu ba. You don't know which woman you had tashmish with one. So one was mutter to you, one was also to you. L'chein chel v'shuman. So if you have a kosher fat and a non-kosher fat in front of you, the savar shtein shuman, and both of them were kosher. V'achol achas mehen, you thought they were. You ate only one. Well, save naida leish achas chelev. One of them taku was not kosher. V'lo yada leizu eichel. You don't know which one you ate. The yada maisichatas. Nekeva b'chol dehu afil bas danka. So if you knew for sure which one you did, then you would bring a chatas, because it's a fact that you did an avera. But if it's unsure, then you bring an asham toli. But it's only if you have the heter and the isser together. V'hashta lo yada maybe asham zachar b'kesev shkolim. Avol hacha shas safek toli b'chaticha achas safek isser safek heter lo ma'isa asham toli. So according to the sheet of Rabbi Lezer, he says that you don't bring a carbon because in this situation you don't have a heter and isser. It's just this one person over here in front of you. Is this person considered to be a bar das or not? And therefore it's not similar to the case of chel v'shuman. To be b'chuy of a carbon. So this is what the Gemara says here. Yisvir Rabbi Lezer Hashem toli nami l'chayev. So, be'inan chaticha mishtei chaticha, that's what we're saying. You'd have to have a piece among 2. Umibar belezer chaticha mishtei chaticha, so sanya belezer oimer koi chayavan al chelbo yasham toloi. When it comes to a koi, in which is a suffix behemoth, suffix chaya, and therefore we don't know the status of whether or not there's an isser of its fats, So he says it's chayav asham toli. The question is that's not chaticha ben shtei chatichos. So Shmuel sevel Rabbi b'chada b'chaga b'chada. So he agrees with him with regard to one aspect, but he argues with him regarding the other. Okay. So on this, the Gemara says, "V'ikad yarmi some say Yomer Rav Chiya bar Rashi Yomer Shmuel Eishes Cheresh, the wife of the Cheresh chayav l'lav asham toli. Taki, you are chayav an asham toli, because it is considered to be an Eishes ish. Meis, at least besuffic. Meis ve chamisha lo yitzraimu. What do you mean? It says that it's not a truma. If it's not a truma, it's mashma that it's nothing. So Savak Rabbi Lezer. So again, he holds like the sheet of Rabbi Lezer. So Bar Rav Ashi, my time with Rabbi Lezer. Why does Rabbi Lezer taka say suffix when it comes to the cherish? Is it mivship shitale the cherish daita kalishahu? Does he consider it obvious that a cherish has a weakened mind? Umihu masafkale. What's his doubt? As e daita salula, this lessened das, is it that the das is sometimes salula, that it's clear, as we continue to Kuf Yud Gimel Omid Beis, ilav daita silule, or it's not clear, even though it's kolush. The question is he at least is there at least clarity? But actually always he has the same level. So maybe there's a level of intellect which is not as high, but still it's enough that they have das, which is soul, clear and clarity, and therefore if that level of clarity is always the same, albeit a lower level than that of a healthy person, so then the din is that just like there's a kedushin, there's a gerushin, everything is the same. O dilma pshitale the daita kalishta v'lav daita silutahu. Clearly, he knows that a person's das is not kolish, is lower, but it's not. But not necessarily is his das clear. Sometimes he's clear-headed, and sometimes he's like a shaita. My nafkamino hoitzi ish to beget. Iyamr chada daitahu kikadushin kach gershin. V'yamr itim cholam v'itim shaita kedushim matzi mekadosh kedushim matzi migarish my teku. So maybe he had a clear head during the shas kedushin, but was a shaita at the time of the gershin. Therefore, the gershin won't work. If you hold that it's always the same, so just like the kedushin works when Rabbanan, the gershin should also work. But in the event that there's a lack of clarity, possibly b'shas gerushin, like a shait, and then the get would not be allowed to be given, and that is the question over here. Okay, nishtatis. So, in the situation of a shaita, so our Mishnah says, in the case of someone who is a shaita, so the Mishnah says, the din is that person cannot receive a get. So Rav Yitzchak, Devar Torah, shaita miskarashas. The truth is, from the Torah, a shaita could actually receive a get. Fine. Midida havya pikachas, bal korcha. Just like when it comes to a pikachas, a woman who is healthy, that she receives it against her will, even though she may not want it. Matam amru ein migresha. So why, if midiraisa, you can forcefully give a woman a get, so you should be able to forcefully give a shaita a get. So then why is it not a gerushin? Midirabanan shal yinagu ba minag hefker. As we said before, because we don't want to treat her behefkerus. Does she know how to guard her get and also herself? So so then there's no element of her being considered or treated ownerless. She's going to know how to conduct herself and protect herself. She doesn't know how to do anything. So in that case, Devar Torah shaitim iskareshes. So how can we say such a person you can receive a get? Such a get shouldn't work. The oimer debei Rabbi Yanai v'nasan biyada mishesh lo yad ligarish atzma yatsa zushin lo yatsa yad ligarish atzma. You have to have a yad to get divorced. You have to have the ability to makabel something. But if you don't have any das whatsoever, and you can't even guard the get that you're receiving, that you just drop it, it doesn't mean anything to you, it's not going to work. You need to have das. So what type of shait are we talking about? That midoraisa it works when Rabbanan doesn't. So v'tana debei Shmuel, right there it says v'shilcha mebeso, mi shemeshalcha ve'enu chezeres yatzazu shemeshalcha v'chozeres. When you leave, that person will. When that person gets sent away, they will not return. However, someone does come back, that's a din shaita, which is a very interesting marriage or dating advice. When you break up and that person clearly doesn't want you and you keep pursuing this relationship, it's an act of you being like a shaita. Actually, the case is that you know how to guard your get, but you don't know to protect yourself. Because she's able to protect her get, so midoraisa it works. We don't want her to leave. Rabbi, take a nami, a proof. Tiktani gabi dida nishtatis lo yoitzi. It says that during the marriage, let's say the woman becomes a shaita, then you don't leave her. Gabi didei, but when it comes to the husband, lo yoitzi lamis. It uses the language never. So how come when it comes to the man who becomes a shaita, he never can leave her? Over there, to look at Tani Olamas. This is how we read up question 2. Question 2 says, Nishtatis will oitzi. Nishtata loy eno moitzi olamas. So makatani b'dida olamas lo b'dida. So he says the difference between the man and the woman who becomes a shaita is that if the woman is a shaita midoraisa, it's a get. It's just not a midorabanan. However, when it comes to the man who becomes a shaita, so the din is that she's even midoraisa, he cannot give a get. It's nothing. Okay. Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. So this is referring to a cherish. Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. Ish pshitale, the man who is a cheresh is poshet. The isha kimiboya. When the woman is a cheresh, this is where there's a question. Well, demi isha pshitale, or maybe when a woman is poshet, if she's a cheresh, the isha kimiboya. Tashma. Medika amrule enu daima haish hamigarish isha hamiskarashes sheisha yotzis ortzayna shel ortzayna vaish enu roitzi el ortzayna. So he said, the major difference between a man and a woman is that a woman receives the get against her will, and the man gives the get only with his will. Shmamina ish kimiboyle, and therefore it's totally obviously on the man. So adarabba medikarmile avzub kiyatzaba. He says that's like the same thing. So shmamina isha kimiboyle. Rav Yochanan nuri ledevarehim karmelahu. Ladidi according to me ki heichadi ish lo matzi megarish ish namlo megarsha. Just like a man can't get divorced, so to a woman also can't get divorced. Eladidhu ma'ishna isha ish. Why do you make a difference? So inudama ish megarisha isha hamiskarashes. So again, this is going back to our Mishnah. That's what it was saying, which asked this question. It says, how come, again, nischarish hu, if he became a cherish, that in moitzel lamas. So it says, why is it that he can't if he became a cherish? Is because he's the one that gives it. However, she became a chereshes, so the din is that no, she could still get divorced because it can be given to her even against her will. Hey, Rabbi Yochanan v'chul sama Rava me'edusa shom Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgad omer le'edim ro getzeh shani noisein. If a person says to witnesses that I saw this get that I gave, the Armula Kinsi Shtar Chayiv Zeh Harzim Garashas, and she didn't know it was a get, he told her it was actually a debt. He said, oh yeah, I'm giving you this document. It doesn't matter, it's still Garashas. Because after all, he did give her a get. Milo Rav Yochanan ben Gudgada lo be'inim daita, hachanam lo be'inim daita. Even though, he kind of like tricked her in a way, but he gave her a document. She accepted it, even though it was really a get, and she didn't know it was a get. So the fact that he said it in this language, maybe he was actually being mevatel the get. Kamashmulan, it's still a good get. Isa the batle Edim havi karmelu. He would have said it to the witnesses. But Edim batle. He didn't. It's not batal. Lo midi. V'hadi karmer hachi machmas kisufahu de karmelu. The only reason why he said this is because he had some element of embarrassment. In other words, perhaps he just didn't really want to give her the get. He wanted to give her the get, but he didn't want to give her the get in a way that she knew about it, because the whole thing would be embarrassing. So he just kind of wanted to do it quickly, etc. And therefore, because of that, it does not need her consent, and therefore she actually would remain divorced in that situation. Adkan.